What if you could have a device that when you trigger it, it can generate a random number, it can light a campfire, and it can open a door? Wouldn't that be so cool? Well, we do have it. It's called the Trigger. Today I'm going to be showing you everything about the Trigger right here that we will be, that you can use for all this stuff like this. You can use it for reset buttons. You can use it for a ton of stuff. If you want to, you can use it for adventure maps. You use triggers everywhere. So, and I cannot believe I have not made a tutorial on this yet. So let's get right into it. So basically, I'm going to show you the settings of the trigger and how to use it. So first thing, I want to show you my demo here that you saw at the beginning. So basically, when you hit this trigger, it sends channel 1 out to all 3 of these triggers. It sends channel 1 to this one, it sends channel 1 to this one, and it sends channel 1 to this one. Now this has to be triggered once before it sends a channel to here. This has to be triggered twice before it sends the channel to the fireplace. And this has to be triggered 3 times before the door can open. Basically, when you hit this once, that triggers once. When you hit it again, the second one goes on. And then hit it again, the third one goes on. So basically, the settings, just for this real quick, I want to show you this. I just put the transmit every X triggers, and I moved it up 1 every single time. See, for this one is 2. And for this one is 3. And then after this is triggered 1, 2, 3 times, it sends the channels out and it does the action. So let's get right into the settings of the trigger right over here. So you can find this device in your creative devices tab. You can type in trigger here and it will pop up. You can click place now, place on the trigger. Let's go right into the settings of it. First setting up here is activating team. What team can activate the trigger? Do you want it to be team 1 or do you want it to be team 50? Or do you want anyone to activate it? Your choice. Same thing with the allow class. So team and class, pretty much the same thing. Trigger by player. Do you want it to trigger by player? You can also make it trigger by damage, items, vehicles, creatures, sequencers, and water. So there are so many things you can trigger the device with. But I'm going to do trigger by player and trigger by damage. So trigger by player means when the player touches it, it will activate. And trigger by damage is when someone fires a weapon at it, like this, it'll trigger. Or if they pickaxe it, it'll also trigger. So that is trigger by player, trigger by damage. Trigger by item is when you place an item on it, it'll activate. Trigger by vehicle, you drive a vehicle over it. Creature steps on it. Sequencers, when a sequencer goes over it, and water when water is on it. So I'm just this doesn't really matter right now for me in my map, but these are your choices and what you want to do. Next one, activate on game phase. You can actually have this device activate by itself. So you can have it activate, which is basically triggering it. So you can have it activate on game countdown or game start or not at all. So the game countdown is when the countdown's going 3, 2, 1, beep. That's when it'll trigger. It'll trigger on the game countdown. The game start is as soon as you hear the beep and the game starts, it'll trigger immediately. So that's that. Times can trigger. This is how many times you could trigger the trigger. That's kind of cool. So you could trigger the trigger until it will not trigger anymore. So you can set it to 1 all the way up to 10 times, and then it won't trigger again. So basically, I'm going to put this for infinite, so I can trigger this infinite times. Transmit every X triggers. This is, say you triggered this. This is the same thing I did over here as my demo. You could basically say you hit this once. That's 1 times trigger. And then 2, that's 2 times trigger, and 3, that's 3 times trigger. So this says how many times do you have to activate the trigger before it can send the channel out. So you can set this for 1 to 100, however many you need. So yeah, say it's like an adventure map, and whenever you find a new room and you step in the room, you step on the trigger just like this. Say you step on the trigger like this. Oh, what? I found a new room. Step on the trigger. That is 1 activate for the trigger. So you can use that for adventure maps. It's a very useful one. Next one down here, delay. You can set the delay and the reset delay are confuse a lot of people. The delay is basically the delay after you finish your triggers. Say all these transmit every X trigger. Say you trigger the trigger and it sends out the channel. This is the delay before the channel gets sent. Okay? And then down here, the reset delay is the reset between how many times you can trigger it. So say the reset delay was 3 seconds. I hit it, and it triggers, and then it counts 1, 2, 3, and I can hit it again. But if I hit it anywhere between those 3 seconds, say I hit it, and then I hit it again, the second one won't activate it because there's a reset delay of 3 seconds. That's just to say. You can set it all the way up to 20 minutes, which is a very high reset delay. Trigger sound and VFX. The VFX is the little blue thing that pops up when you trigger. It's like bing. And the sound, it's like the blue thing that pops up, and then the sound is the sound that the trigger makes when it's activated. So I'll keep that on for the video. I would turn that off if you're making any kind of like reset button or anything where the trigger is close to them and you don't want them to hear the trigger be enabled. Visible in game. Do you want the trigger to be visible? Yes, no. Toggle it on or off. Pretty simple. So these two kind of go together, the visible in game and receive damage while invisible. So say you set it for visible in game. And then you could trigger this all you want because you could see the trigger. Say the trigger was invisible. Say you set it for visible in game, you set it to no. That means you're going to have to, if you want it to take damage, if you want it to be triggered by damage while it is invisible, then you have to go right here. So receive damage while invisible. You can turn it on take damage while invisible or do not take damage while invisible. So if you turn it off to no while it's and make it invisible, then you have to do this setting and put it on take damage if you want them to take damage to it. But I'm not going to turn that on for now. And the next one down here is enable on game start. Toggle it, enable, disable. Do you want it to be enabled at game start? This is not activating the trigger. This is only allowing it to get channels in and out. And this allows it so when the player steps on it, it'll activate. If it's disabled, then it won't do anything and it's off basically. This is basically turning the trigger on and off. Next one, enable, disable. It's on every device. You can enable it on a channel and disable it on a channel, whatever you would like. If you scroll down here, you see reset times triggered when receiving from a channel. So this basically resets the transmit every X triggers. So this setting right here, reset times triggered, resets the amount of times this is triggered. So say I set this for 5, yeah, and then I hit this 1, 2, 3 times. So if I hit this 2 more times, it would send out a channel. But if you set this for reset on a channel like that, say 1, whenever 1 gets set into here, it'll reset the amount of times you have to hit it in order for it to send out the channel. So I would have to hit it 5 more times, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have to hit it that many more times. So this resets the amount of times you have to trigger before the channel goes out and sends. Next one right here, trigger when receiving from. This is when a channel comes in. Do you want... Let's see, let me rephrase this. When a channel comes in, do you want it to trigger? So as soon as you get it receives the channel, I can't talk. As soon as it receives this channel, whatever channel you want in here, then it will trigger. So trigger when receiving from, it triggers the device. Basically, it's the same thing as you stepping on it. And this trigger when receiving from, this will also go into your X thing right here. So it'll transmit every X. So say you sent out the channel 1 5, you would have to send out channel 1 5 times before it can actually send out the when triggered transmit on channel. So that's the last one actually. When triggered transmit on channel whatever you want. Say 10. Yeah, that's a good number. So as soon as everything's good and you've triggered it the amount of times that you need to send out the channel, this is what channel you want to send out to go your action. So this is actually a very confusing device. It's confusing to new people, but once you get the hang of it, is actually pretty easy. You could use this is used for reset buttons or other stuff. A video on a reset button is going to come up very soon. So yeah. So those are all the settings for it. So let me just set up a little scenario real quick. If I go like this, and then I get a barrier from here. And there we go. Get a little plate. Boom. Stone. Okay. Piece fizzle. Let me just do the settings really quick. And now I'm going to set it to enable in game phase none and enable when received for channel 1. So basically, and then I check this. Okay. So basically what I just set up here is whenever this trigger gets activated 5 times, it'll enable the barrier. So if I activate this 1 time, it will not turn on the barrier. If I activate it 2, 3, and 4 times, the barrier will not be on. But once I activate this the 5th time, it'll send out the channel for the barrier to turn on. Just like that. And also, I'm also on channel 1 over here, so it also did this. Don't worry about that. But that's basically it for the trigger. If you have any questions, I know you guys are going to have a lot of questions about this. I will try to reply to as many comments as I can in the comment section below. So please, don't spam me too much with comments. And if you have any further questions that you don't think a regular person would understand, like your friends, you can join my Discord and I will answer questions there also. This main channel is basically helping you guys out with your creative maps. If you enjoyed, leave a like and hit that subscribe button. It really supports the channel a ton. We're on the road to 10,000 subscribers. We have a long way to go. We are at 2,000. Thank you so much for 2,100 right now. But that's it. Thank you for watching the video. A sister out.